You are not required to carry reality. The ontological placement error that's quietly crushing our leaders of civilization. Section 1. Polymath. There is a particular kind of collapse that only happens to the competent. It does not visit the passive. It does not trouble the disengaged. No. It preserves itself with almost surgical precision for those who carry civilizational weight. The statesmen drafting legislation at 2 a.m. with a district of 700,000 souls, depending on their discernment. The founders holding a vision that doesn't yet exist in the material form, and won't, unless their nervous system can sustain the pressure long enough to channel it through. The religious leaders standing between an infinite God and a congregation of finite people who need that God mediated through a human voice every single week. These are the levers. The people, civilization rests in. And they are collapsing. Not from weakness, not from lack of intelligence, not from insufficient willpower. They are collapsing because they have been placed incorrectly in relation to reality. This is not a psychological problem. This is not a strategy problem. This certainly is not an execution problem. This is an ontological placement error. And until that error is corrected, no amount of executive coaching, no amount of mindfulness retreats, no amount of resilience training will touch the root. Because the root is deeper than anyone has told you to look. Your coaches don't know what they're talking about. Your therapists don't know what they're talking about. Your other advisors don't know what they're talking about. Because none of them are operating from the metaphysics. None of them are playing the game at this level of reality. I am. That's why I can see it clearly and why no one else can diagnose your problem. And so if you want to figure out how to solve it, keep listening. Section 2, the compression. What happens to a leader under sustained pressure is not breakdown. It is compression. The perception narrows. The field of vision tightens. Options that were visible last month become invisible this week. Not because they disappeared, but because the aperture through which the leader perceives reality has contracted to a point where only the most immediate, most threatening, most survival-coded data even gets through. This is not stupidity. It is physics. An object under compression loses degrees of freedom. When you're compressed to a certain finite space, you lose degree of how much you can move in space, right? That's what movement is. That's what force is, a push or a pull, going in one direction or another. There's vector in movement. When you're compressed, you have less vector in space. Yeah, when you're compressed, you also have less vector in mind. An object under compression loses degrees of freedom in physical space. A mind under compression loses degrees of freedom in mental space, in degrees of perception. And perception is the only game that matters, because every decision a leader makes, every decision that you make as a lever, as a mass mover, is downstream of what you can see. If the aperture is compressed, the decision is compressed. If how you're viewing reality, your aperture, right? Aperture is the amount of light that a lens allows to come through. Aperture is a camera. It's a term in camera, in light, in film. In light optics, aperture is in relation to the lens on a camera, in relation to your eye, in relation to your mind. They're just apertures at different levels of reality. Mechanical, perceptual, physical perceptual, mental, spiritual perceptual. And so if your aperture is compressed, if your ability to see is compressed, your ability to act, your decisions, will be compressed. And if the decision is compressed, the outcome is compressed. The decision leads to the outcome. The decision's compression was formed by the perception. If the perception is compressed, the decision is compressed, outcome is compressed. The whole system tightens around the contraction like a fist. And you don't even realize that your hand's clamping up. This is not a metaphor. This is what actually happens inside the nervous system of every lever who has ever frozen in a moment that required fluidity, who has ever made a reactive decision they knew in their bones was wrong 3 seconds after they made it, who has ever lain awake at 4 a.m. with a clarity they couldn't access at the 2 p.m. meeting because the room was too hot and the stakes were too high and your body was too contracted to let the signal through. Your aperture was too compressed. This compression has a structure. It operates through 3 fields, and the pattern is identical across all 3 types of levers: statesmen, founders, and religious leaders. Although the content differs. One compression feels noble. One attaches to external structures. One grasps for control. They always appear in the same architecture. And the one that feels noble is always the one doing the most damage, because it is the one the leader will never question. For the statesman, a legislator carries a district. 700,000 people. Every vote is public record. Every decision gets scored by interest groups, polling firms, and party leadership. The pressure is triaxial. At the surface, there is party loyalty. The whips are counting votes. The leadership is making calls. Log rolling is happening in hallways. The Hastert rule means nothing reaches the floor unless the majority of the majority agrees. To step outside that structure is to lose committee assignments, fundraising support, the protection of the tribe. That is danger to the nervous system. This is the control field, the attempt to maintain stability by staying inside the machine, maintaining control over externals in your environment. The legislator knows this compression exists. They feel it every vote cycle. It's the most visible pressure, and therefore, the least dangerous. Beneath that, there is the information environment. Interest groups are the most influential force at the committee level. Not because they bribe, though some do, because they frame. They provide the research. They draft the bill language. They fund the studies that become the data that becomes the objective analysis. The legislator reads before markup. By the time a statesman is deciding how to vote, the perception has already been shaped by forces that were active months earlier at a stage the statesman may never have seen. This is the attachment field. The clinging to the external sources of knowledge as if they were neutral, as if information that arrives pre-framed is the same as information that is true. The legislator may sense this compression. Most don't. The framing is invisible precisely because it prevents itself, the framing is invisible precisely because it presents itself as fact. You see, the thing is, most people just take other things people give to them as straight up, as truth, as fact, as reality. And so if you're outsourcing your discernment, you're going to be too busy thinking things are just 100% when most things in reality are never so black and white. That's a problem. Because at the level you're operating at, you can't afford to collapse nuance. You can't afford to collapse multiplicity. Multiplicity is the game you're playing in governance. Holding multiple perspectives of people. Holding multiple perspectives, collapsing. Holding that each representative is representing multiplicity and that we have to coordinate this multiplicity. Governance is applied cosmology, as are all these other games. Business is the same. Religious organization is the same. Art is the same. Leadership, influence is the same. The art of holding multiplicity under pressure is core if you're a lever of civilization. But the problem is, most people have been taught that linearity is the way, and that holding nuance, holding ambiguity is scattered. It's indecisive. But the problem is, the only way to ever get to true focus and true precision, true decisiveness, is by holding ambiguity, holding paradox long enough for true clarity to emerge, and never by collapsing perspectives. But most people don't actually understand how reality works. They don't actually understand how real knowing works. They would rather sound right than be right. The problem is, if you want to be right, you got to stay not knowing what the fuck is happening until you get to the point where you know what the fuck is happening. Most people want to sound right and feel right inside rather than knowing and actually being fucking correct. You can't afford to play those ego games if you're a lever, because other people, they suffer because of your distortions. That is unacceptable. So I'm going to train you to be conscious of your distortions so you can prevent them from reaching your people, for them distorting your mission. The legislator may sense this compression of information. Most do not. And the framing is invisible precisely because it presents itself as fact rather than as frame. And beneath that, beneath those two outside external things, both of those things are just external. All those things have to do with other people, have to do with the world. No. It's always deeper. Beneath that, the root is constituency survival. It is the belief that my people need me. If I do not act, they suffer. If I do not perform, I lose my seat. And then I cannot serve them at all. And this is the compression that never gets questioned, because it feels like duty, it feels like necessary, it feels like obligation, it even feels noble, like service. And you know what? It's because part of it is. But you're not realizing that the other part of it is costing your nervous system. The thing is, you did get into entering public life. You did enter this route because you have this duty, because you do feel like you have a unique call to serve. That is true. The problem is, underneath what your mind tells you is an invisible layer of I am not enough. And that's not even a layer, that's the core. Everything else is the layer. My people need me. If I don't act, they suffer. If I don't perform, I lose my seat. Then I can't serve them at all. Oh, this is my purpose. This is my truth. Yeah, all of those are just layers. The core is I am not enough. I am not enough for my people unless I produce. I am not enough to hold this seat unless I perform. I am not enough for my people. Lack. This pattern manifests the same across the founders. Right. A founder carries a vision, something that does not yet exist in the material world. It lives in the mind's eye, the spiritual perception, in the gut, in the 3 a.m. conviction that this thing must exist, and that they are the one through whom it must come into being. Pressure is again triaxial. At the surface, there's market pressure. Timelines, funding cycles, board expectations, competitor movements. The structural forces of the market that reward speed and punish hesitation. Every quarter is a performance review conducted by people who hold the money. This is the control field. The founder attempting to manage external conditions so the vision survives long enough to prove itself. This compression is visible. Every founder talks about it. Podcasts are built on it. And yet, it's the one that matters the least. Beneath that, there is the weight of people. Employees who left other jobs to be here. Investors who wrote checks on the strength of a pitch. Customers who built workflows around a product that might not exist in 6 months. This is the attachment field. The clinging to external validation structures as proof that the vision is real, that the founder is on the right track, that the hole inside is being filled by the presence of people who believe. Ooh, the founder feels this one. It keeps them awake. But they often misdiagnose it as responsibility, when it is actually dependency. The need for external confirmation that they are not building a hallucination. Deeper, still external, still not the root, still not the cause. Because beneath that, the root is the relationship to the vision itself. Without me, this dies, the founder believes. If I stop, it stops. I am the sole carrier of something that has no other body to live in. This is the compression that feels like devotion, like sacred duty, like the highest expression of purpose. And you know what? It is. But unexamined lies inside. I am not enough. I am not enough to hold all this weight. I am not enough to carry something this large in a body this small. I am not enough to hold this vision alone. Lack. Same pattern for the religious leader. A religious leader carries souls, not metaphorically. They stand in a position where human beings come to them seeking contact with the infinite, seeking mediation between their finite suffering and an absolute reality they cannot access alone. The pressure, like always, is triaxial. At the surface, there is the external world, the culture watching, other denominations judging, media framing, political forces that want to weaponize faith for electoral gain. This is the control field. The attempt to manage how the outside world perceives the community, to defend against misrepresentation, to maintain legitimacy in a culture that is increasingly hostile to organized religion. This compression is obvious. Every pastor, imam, and rabbi knows it. It is exhausting. It is not the root. Beneath that, there's the congregation, the face in the pews, the families in crisis, the marriages fracturing, the young people leaving, the elderly dying. This is the attachment field. The clinging to congressional outcomes as proof of spiritual worth. If the community grows, God is pleased. If people are transformed, the leader has fulfilled their calling. If attendance drops, something is wrong with the leader's faith. The religious leader feels this compression acutely. It looks like pastoral care. It looks like devotion to God, devotion to calling, devotion to one of the highest duties one could ever walk. And it often is. But underneath, the care is a dependency on the congregation's response as evidence that the leader is doing enough for God. And this is why, if you're a religious leader, I want you to hear me more clearly than anyone else. Because the root that you're facing is the most dangerous. It is the most subtle, and it is the one that will kill you if you don't stop it now. Beneath all these other things, theological shame. Not guilt over a specific act, not something that you can't perform in the physical, something that you can't do, right? Not being able to serve your people through your policy like the Statesmen, not being able to bring the vision into reality like with the founder. No. Something much deeper, something much more dangerous. Shame at the level of being itself. Am I enough for God? Am I doing enough to serve the kingdom? Am I faithful enough, devoted enough, surrendered enough? This is the most dangerous compression of the three levers because it is embedded in the metaphysics. If the leader's theology places God as external, as a tyrannical character being who must be pleased, who evaluates performance, who withholds presence from those who don't earn it, then the leader unconsciously becomes the generator of their congregation's relationship with God, rather than a channel through which that relationship flows. The savior complex is not ego, it is theology. It is a metaphysical error producing emotional compression that looks like holiness, feels like faithfulness. Truly, it is lack wearing a cassock. I am not enough for God. Like I said, this is the most dangerous. Because if you don't believe, if you don't know, no, not believe, that's not the right word. That word implies that there could be something else to believe, that there could be an opposite perspective to hold that has equal truth. No, there isn't. You are never not enough for God. You are always enough. And the problem is, the theology of your religion has taught you that God is outside of you, that the infinite is outside of you. This is fundamentally incorrect at the level of absolute reality. If there is one source which all of life permeates from, and that one source is a non-physical, metaphysical source, that means all metaphysical nature permeates from the one source. That means everything is connected to the one source. Because if you were metaphysically separate from the source, you wouldn't metaphysically exist, because the source is the source of existence. There is only existence inside of the source. There is only life inside of love. You are never separate from life. You are never separate from love. You are life. You are love itself. And that love is infinite, and it is true, and it is good, and it is beautiful, and it is lawful, and it is intentional. Because love is infinite intelligence. God is infinite intelligence. And that infinite intelligence is your nature. You were never not enough, and you were always more than enough. And the reason you feel lack isn't because that's not the case. It's because your perception isn't aligned with how God sees you. You feel bad, you feel shame, not because God ever told you to not feel some kind of way about yourself. It's because other people did. When did God ever say, you're not enough for me because you're not performing? When did that happen? Did God come to you in a prayer and say that? Man, because if so, I can promise you, that was a fucking demon. I can promise you that was the ego whispering to you. That was a negatively polarized entity getting into your mind through the door of the ego. But I can guarantee that the one infinite creator, that which is love, which is truth, would never have told you some BS like that, because it's incorrect. You are not separate from reality. You are not separate from God. You are not separate from everything, anything. None of us are. And the thing is, this is the real root, the real problem. We're going to get to that later. But let me just end this little rant here by saying, your nature is more than enoughness. That's what infinite abundance is, more than enough. Always. That is literally what you are inside. Lack isn't the feeling of the mismatch between a finite interior and an infinite exterior that you can never get to. No. It's actually the exact opposite. Lack is the feeling of the mismatch between an infinite, unbounded interiority pressing against the constraints of finitude. It is the soul saying, there is so much more of me inside that isn't outside yet. And you know what? That shit is painful. So what do? You expand. You expand your infiniteness. You actualize your infinite potential in the finite reality. We're going to talk more about that later. Let's move on. Here's the pattern. Every lever has 3 compression fields. One is on the surface, the thing that they're trying to control, visible, discussed, manageable. These are the things most people see and most people complain about. And since most people are surface level, that's where most people stop. Now, if you start contemplating things and you start going within your inner world, you start recognizing things, you might get to the second one. The attachment, the one that's in the middle, the bridge. Felt, and if contemplated and recognized, if actually, if you start putting some skill towards understanding your interior world, you'll be able to get this one. But you'll think it's the root, and it's not. Because the root is always invisible. It's always so deep inside and never outside. It has external signals, but it's got an interior root, an interior cause. It's always from the inside. And that is the one that is disguised as the leader's deepest value, which is why it's the one that almost never gets questioned. The surface compression is always control, the middle compression is always attachment, and the root compression is always lack. And the root, the one that feels like duty, faithfulness, or devotion, is the one generating the other two. Without the root belief that I am not enough, there would be nothing to attach to externally, nothing to attempt to control. You only attach to externals because you're trying to fulfill your internal with something external. You only want to control those externals things that you're attached to because you think that if you don't have them, you'll start lacking again. No. That's always a fallacy, because if you needed things outside of you to never be lacking, when they were gone, you would still be lacking. That doesn't fix the problem. That's a band-aid, not a solution. These are not separate problems. These are not 3 separate problems. They are 3 symptoms of one pattern, and that pattern has a name. Number 3, the snickness. Underneath every compression is a belief. Underneath every belief is a deeper belief. And underneath all 3 beliefs is one root that has been running the entire system since before the leader took their first oath, signed their first term sheet, or delivered their first sermon. 3 beliefs, like we've talked about, are 1, lack, the root, foundational, that attachment and then control builds on. 2nd is attachment, 3rd is control. And the thing is, there's also 3 feelings associated with these 3 beliefs, which is how you know you're in one of them right now. Lack is associated with sadness. Attachment is associated with anger. Control is associated with fear. When you feel scared, it's because you're trying to control outcomes. When you feel angry, it's because an outcome that you were attached to was blocked. This isn't just surface level anger either. Jealousy, bitterness, envy. Fear could be stress, worry, panic. Lack could be sadness, grief. Now, I'm not telling you to start gaslighting yourself and not feel these things. No. Feel all of your emotions and recognize that your emotions are signals to your interior world that you should learn and understand how to consciously use to master your interiority, to master your emotional state. Your emotions are your friends, including your negative ones. When you love them and you accept them, you start gaining mastery over your interior that other people could only fucking dream of. And if you're a lever of civilization, you can't afford to not have this kind of internal mastery, because your interiority doesn't stay interior. It permeates to the outside. Your will doesn't have the potential to become reality, to then manifest. No. Your will just does become reality. You hold the kind of power that your thoughts, your words, move lives, move bodies. That kind of interiority doesn't stay inside the self. That's why this game isn't optional. This art, this skill is not optional for you. The three beliefs of lack, attachment, and control flow downstream of each other in a sequence that cannot be rearranged, because the sequence is not arbitrary. It is structural. It maps to the architecture of human consciousness itself. Lack lives at the root. It is the belief that something is missing. Not that something is wrong, that something is absent. A hole, an insufficiency, an incompleteness at the level of being. An incompleteness that no achievement, no title, no congregation, no Series B, no re-election can ever fill. Because the hole is not in the resume. The hole is in the self-perception. Lack never presents itself honestly. It does not say, I am incomplete. Nah. That'd be too fucking obvious. Lack is always much, much trickier. That motherfucker is real subtle. Instead, it generates thoughts like, I need to work harder. If I just get this next thing right, it will be enough. I can't slow down, because if I slow down, the gap will swallow me. The thoughts are infinite. The belief under them is singular. I am not enough. That's it. That's the one belief. From lack, attachment flows naturally. If something is missing inside, then something outside must fill it. Right? This is the ego's thought process. Unfortunately, the ego's wrong. The statesman attaches to information environments, polling data, interest group analysis, committee research, as if the right external input will compensate for the internal insufficiency. That's not how it works, bro. The founder attaches to the people, team members, investors, mentors, advisors, as if enough external support will make the weight bearable. Come on, bro. The religious leader attaches to the congregational outcomes, attendance numbers, baptisms, visible transformation, prayer, worship leaders, money, endorsements, as if enough external fruit will prove internal faithfulness. This is the fallacy. This is the trap. All three are doing the same thing, reaching outside for something that can only ever be generated inside. The bridge between lack and the external world is always attachment. From attachment, control follows inevitably. If my wholeness depends on external outcomes, then I must manage those outcomes. That makes sense? I must make sure the polls hold, the investors stay, the congregation grows. I must grip, I must steer, I must not let go. Because if the external structure shifts, the hole reopens, and the lack floods right back in. And this is the fallacy. The externals needing to be there for the lack to not be there means that the lack is still there. You're just not feeling it because you're numbing yourself through these external things. Like I said, Band-Aid, not real solution. So here I am with the ontological life support. I'm here to give you the surgery, not the Band-Aid. From attachment, control follows inevitably. If my wholeness depends on external outcomes, then I must manage those outcomes. I must make sure the polls hold, the investors stay, the congregation grows. I must grip, I must steer, I must not let go. Because if the external structure shifts, the hole reopens and the lack floods back in. The statesman controls through party machinery. The founder controls through operational intensity. The religious leader controls through theological authority. All three are doing the exact same thing, attempting to hold the world in place so the internal wound doesn't get exposed. Control is always the most visible. It's what the outside world diagnoses first. They're a control freak. They micromanage. They can't delegate. And every leadership consultant on the planet will try to treat control directly, with delegation frameworks, with trust exercises, with management training. That is not the problem. That is a symptom. None of it touches the root, because control is not the disease. Control is their outermost symptom of a cascade that begins with a single, unexamined belief. I am not enough. So we're going to examine this belief. And we're going to criticize it, scrutinize it. And we're going to see, does this bitch really hold with the evidence? With the metaphysical evidence and the empirical, existential lived evidence of your own life. Section 4, the real root. So the thing is, the sickness, it goes deeper still. Because underneath lack, underneath the felt insufficiency, the belief in incompleteness is the actual root. Lack is actually just another symptom. The problem is, you believe that you're separate. Separation is the core belief, the core problem that the three beliefs of ego manifest as symptoms. The three types of compressions that you see and how they manifest in your own life, those are just symptoms of the three beliefs of ego, which are symptoms. The real root problem is metaphysical. It's ontological. It is at the level of being. I can never be enough because I am separate. You see, the belief in separation is so fundamental that it's not experienced as a belief at all, but as the basic texture of reality. That I am just a separate self, cut off from the rest of reality, moving through a world of other separate selves. And that my survival, my worth, my lovability, and my capacity to serve depend entirely on what this individual separate self can produce. Modern science and modern religion has taught us that reality is not coherent, that reality doesn't work organized, or does not work in a coherent manner, that reality has separation, that distinguishment and distinction is separation, that uniqueness is separation. These things are false. And this falsity living at the core of your personality, your identity, is the real problem. Separation is the ground from which lack grows. But the thing is, if you are one with the infinite, which you are of the infinite, right? I already said there's only one source. All life permeates from that one source, from the one infinite creator. And so if you are one with the infinite, if your nature is not merely finite, but infinity expressing itself right here, right now, through finitude, then lack, not being enough, having incompleteness, is structurally impossible. It's not aligned with the actual metaphysics. If you are of the infinite, if you are a droplet of the ocean, all you are is the infinite's love and power and truth and beauty. The infinite's infinite intelligence, the infinite's love, is all you are made of. A droplet in the ocean is nothing but water. It is nothing but the ocean. We can pull a droplet out of the ocean and distinguish it. We can scrutinize it. We can look at it. We can put it into a different form if we put it into a cup. At the end of the day, it's still fucking water. It's still the ocean. No matter what you see in this reality, in this physical world, or in any other reality, I don't know if you've ever been to astral planes. I haven't, but dreams are definitely astral worlds. Dreams are definitely other planes of existence. Regardless of where you're at, you need to know that everything is infinite intelligence expressing itself through form. Infinite intelligence differentiating itself in the cosmos so that love may experience its own beauty, its own truth, its own goodness, its own love in deeper and deeper infinite contexts, infinite levels. That is why the cosmos exists. The cosmos is divine inquiry in motion, desiring to experience its own love through the mirror that the contrast of polarity creates. And this is the problem. This is why if you are too busy collapsing polarity into morality, like good and evil, you're actually missing the mechanics. Because good and evil is merely a fragmentation of conscious polarity, right? Good and evil only exists when there are the ability for separate selves, like humans, to actually choose to act out of alignment with their nature. Before there is conscious alignment of reality, conscious understanding of truth in the body, there is no ability to act in a way that is good or evil, right? This is why trying to judge and put morality on the animal kingdom doesn't really make sense, because most animals aren't thinking consciously in that way. They're not approaching it from that perspective. Humans are, though. And so this is why we have to back up to the mechanics, to the nature of reality itself, because the universe is polarized. Radiation and expansion, radiation and contraction, gravity and radiation, logos and eros, form and flow, masculine and feminine, Shakti, Shiva, consciousness, energy. The universe is polarized because these two realities cohere into the one reality of the creator. Polarity is how oneness manifests dual. But the thing is, from that true manifestation of polarity, there's the ability to fragment into distortion. But that only happens when the mind that can compress the awareness of awareness, right? This is third density consciousness. This is a human being. The human being is aware of its own awareness. This is what consciousness is, awareness of awareness. Once the awareness of awareness exists, we can make actions that go against our internal compass, that go against what we feel is right. We can also be programmed with things that we don't even know are wrong or are, quote, evil, because people have just told us that, right? People that grew up in slave times, most of them weren't evil people. They just thought this is how it worked. And they might have felt internal strife at times because that goes against the nature of love. And so their internal compass was still there, but their mind was so conformed that it didn't even feel wrong, that they couldn't really recognize it as wrong because they just always thought that's how it worked. This is why you can't judge people for where they are, for what they know, for how they act, because everyone has different circumstances that they've evolved in. You need to stop trying to collapse how you've lived life onto other people. That is why, like, you can't have empathy for people. Empathy is a skill. Empathy is the skill of stepping out of your egoic as separate self identity for like 2 seconds and just stepping into someone else's mental state and emotional state, someone else's lived experience, and genuinely allowing that to change you interiorly. Not saying, not thinking about it, feeling their lived experience. It's a skill. You can practice it. Most people never understand that we are all one. And the thing is, like, your mind doesn't need to like get this. Your heart already knows. Your soul already knows. Your body already knows. When you live from love, it feels right. When you serve others, when you go beyond yourself, it feels right. When you are served, when you feel like you have been seen, when you receive love, it feels right because that is your nature. And that nature is always expanding. That nature always feels true and it always feels good because it is. Because love is true. Love is good. Love is beauty. And so it's like, if you are one with the infinite, which you are, if your nature is not merely finite, it's not. Your nature is infinity expressing itself through finitude. Your essence is infinite, but your existence is finite. Your interior, your soul, is eternal and infinite, but your lived existence, your temporal reality, it's finite. That mismatch does create tension, but that doesn't mean that you're lacking. That doesn't mean that you aren't enough. No, you're so much. You cannot lack what you are. You cannot be insufficient when you are an expression of infinite intelligence, moving through a particular body at a particular time for a particular purpose. You have intent. Infinite intelligence is intentional. Reality is lawful. Reality is ordered. You are a part of that intent, that design, that order. But if you believe you are separate, if the deepest unexamined assumption of your consciousness is that you are a disconnected fragment, a wave that forgot it was ocean, then lack is inevitable. And this is why most people are living in lack, because this assumption is never examined. Of course you feel insufficient. You've severed yourself from the source of all sufficiency. This is where every leader of civilization is stuck. Not at the level of strategy, not at the level of psychology, not at the level of resilience. All of that shit is downstream. We are upstream at the level of ontology, the level of being itself, of where they've placed themselves in the structure of reality. The placement is wrong, and no downstream intervention can correct an upstream error. You can't change an effect by changing an effect. You change an effect by changing the cause. This is the cause. You can't treat a sickness by covering over symptoms. You treat a sickness by getting to the cause, and by removing the things that were causing it and restoring things that are going to heal you. This is the ontological life support I'm providing. This is the massive one. the lack reframe. Here is what must be understood about the felt experience of lack before the alchemy can begin. Lack is not a void. It is not a hole that proves you are broken. Lack is a signal. It is the felt experience of having an infinite nature compressed into a finite reality. It is the felt experience of having infinite interiority bounded and constrained by finite manifestation, finite expression. It is a desire, inarticulate, subterranean, constant desire, the strenuous desire to move toward infiniteness, toward expansion, toward the fullness of what you actually are. When a leader feels lack, they are not experiencing evidence of their deficiency. They are experiencing the friction between what they are, infinite in nature, infinite in potentiality, and what they are currently experiencing, finite, compressed, boundaried by space-time. The signal is not "you are broken." No. It's quite the opposite. The signal is you are more than this, and you know it. And the contraction hurts because you were not made to remain stagnant. There's no such thing as stagnation. There's only growth or death. You're either evolving or you're dying. Stagnation is a mental fallacy. This reframe is critical because if lack is a void, the only response is to fill it. That's what the ego believes. The ego believes lack is a void, and so it thinks that filling it is the only way to sustain, to compensate. And that's what produces attachment and control. But the unique self understands properly that lack is a signal. And so the correct response is not to fill, but to expand. Not to bring externals to your internal to attempt to fill a hole. No. To bring your internal to the external, to actualize it. To widen the aperture, widen your perception, widen your ability to bring heaven to earth and to hold, your ability to hold heaven on earth and your ability to bring earth up to heaven. Widen the aperture, train your perception on the infinite rather than contracting it around the finite. Devote yourself to growth, to love, and to service above all. The misperception of what lack is what traps the entire system. The leader feels lack, they interpret it as deficiency, and so they reach outward, they attach, they grip, they compress further. This compression intensifies the felt lack because you're trying to compensate your infinite interiority with finite things. The thing is, the hole that is inside of you isn't a hole, but you feel like it is. The thing is, it's infinite though. What's inside of you is infinite. And so if you think that it's infinite absence and you're trying to fill the infinite absence with finite things, it's never going to work. What's inside of you is infinite potential, infinite truth, infinite presence. And what you need to do is bring that infinite presence to the finite, because that's how you'll actualize it. You extract your infinite potentiality and you extract it through the work into finite actuality. That's how you grow. That's how you build. That's how you expand your capacity to hold coherence. The misprescription is what traps the entire system. The reframe is what frees you. If you feel lack, you'll interpret as deficiency. You'll always reach outward, you'll always attach, you'll always grip, you'll always compress. You'll always intensify the loop because you think that that's going to solve it. It won't. This is the inertia loop. Not a psychological habit, but a metaphysical error compounding itself through time. I'll go through this little sketch of mine. Here's the thing about the metaphysics of inertia and consciousness. The mind is both the cause and the effect. The interior mind is the cause, the exterior mind is the effect. Your exterior mind, what you see in the world, right? The world you experience, right? Like Nero puts this pretty well. Nero likes to say there is one planet, but there are 8 billion worlds, right? 8 billion people, 8 billion worlds. There's one planet Earth, one Mother Gaia, but there are 8 billion worlds. Because your world is what you mentally see the world as and what it could transform into. Your exterior mind is a reflection of your interior. What the world is for you, what the world's being is for you, and what the world could transform into, what the world could become, what the world, that's like the world's becoming for you. Those things in the exterior are simply a reflection of your own interior. If you believe the world sucks and it's evil, it's going to reflect that back to you. If you believe the world can't change, it's going to reflect that back to you. Once you start changing how you see the world you see changes because the interior is the image. The exterior, the interior is the thing held in front of the mirror, right? It's the thing you actually put in front. It's the source. It's the generator of the reflection. Your interior is the thing that causes. It's the causal realm for your exterior. Your exterior is your physical world. Cause and effect. The thing is, without conscious recognition that the cause creating the effect and the effect reinforcing the cause, like this is a constant loop. Cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. If you don't understand that, you will continuously create reinforcing loops and stay in the cycle. And so conscious perception and neutral, non-judgmental observation is the first step to break this cycle. You got to stop judging yourself. You got to stop judging the world. Judgment is charge. The thing is, you don't want positive or negative charge. Both of those will keep accelerating. The thing is, acceleration is good only if we're actually accelerating the right thing. If you want to break a chain, you got to stop having emotion tied to it. You got to observe neutrally. Just look at it. Just observe it mechanically. This is why I approach things as an engineer, as a system, as like systems agnostics. This is why I approach things when I'm teaching you guys these things very mechanically and very system-mindedly. Because you need to stop judging yourself and you need to stop judging reality because it's the only way to actually make fucking progress. I'm not telling you this because it's fucking cute. It's because this is how it works. I stayed in traps of cycles for fucking months because I kept judging myself for how I was. Non-judgment is the first thing that actually fucking kills the inertia. That's the only thing. This cycle is brutal. I'm going to teach you how to escape it. The ontological placement thesis of the lever, of what I'm doing here with the ontological life support for the levers of civilization, is simple. Everyone who has told you that your collapse is a psychological problem, a willpower problem, an intelligence problem, or an execution problem has been operating at the wrong level of the game. That's why none of their shit works for you, because they're fucking wrong. Not because what they're saying isn't true, because what they're saying stops too far downstream. I'm swimming you all the way upstream, so you can only see the real issue. And you're going to see how all of those symptoms that other people have been telling you about that haven't been actually working because they're not the problem. I'm showing you the whole process. That's what this entire thing is right now. Your problem is not psychology. It's not will. It's not agency. You wouldn't be where you are right now if you didn't have those things. Your problem is ontological placement. You have placed yourself as the source, the generator of outcomes, the carrier of reality, the engine that must never stop running or everything dies. And that placement is incorrect. It has always been incorrect. And it is the incorrectness of this placement, not the weight of the role, that is collapsing your nervous system and compressing your perception until you cannot make decisions clearly. So hear me when I say this, and I'm going to say it very clearly. You are not the car that generates the electricity. You are the jumper cables. You are not the car that generates the electricity. You are the jumper cables. The current does not originate in you. It flows through you. Without you, yes, the current does not transfer. The cables are necessary. You have unique responsibility, unique weight, unique agency. The cables are not decorative. They're not just there because they look cool. No. They're doing real work. They're functioning for a reason. If we try to jumpstart civilization, we need the cables, or the current has nowhere to go. But the cables do not generate, nor were they ever asked to. That is not their function. This is the problem. You are jumper cables. Somewhere along the line, you started believing that you had to be the generator, and you've been wondering why you can't do anything now. Because you're trying to do something that is functionally fucking impossible. Like, what is happening? Do jumper cables generate electricity? No, that's fucking foolishness. Jumper cables are only asked to do one thing, and they're asked to do it well. Route the current without distortion. Route the love and the transformation without distortion. That is your sole function. When you stop trying to be the generator and you instead just 100% focus on being the channel, holy fuck, how much freedom is available to your nervous system. How much weight gets lifted off your shoulders. Not that you don't have any more weight. No. There's still weight, promise. It's still there. That shit's not going nowhere. But you're now not collapsing under cosmic weight, infinite weight that was never supposed to be yours. You're properly held and properly holding the unique weight, the unique circle of influence, the unique impact, the unique responsibility, the unique telos, the unique purpose that you were meant to carry. It gets lighter because now the proper weight is on your shoulders, not the collapsing amount. The moment the cables believe they are the engine, they overheat, they melt, they fail. Not because they're weak, not because they need better psychology or better strategies, not because they're lacking willpower. No, this is a mechanical problem. A can't do B. What are we talking about? They're trying to do something they were never designed to do. It can't happen. You have responsibility. You have necessity. You have weight. You have agency. You do not have all of it. And you are never supposed to. Place yourself properly, and the weight becomes bearable. Not because the heaviness decreases, not because the weight goes away, but because it is distributed correctly across a structure designed to hold it. Section 5. The alchemy. If the sickness is ontological placement, the medicine is ontological correction. An ontological correction is not a single operation. It is 3 operations, performed at 3 levels of reality, in a sequence that is invariant, because reality itself is invariant. Reality is lawful. The 3 operations are union alchemy, vector alchemy, and placement alchemy. These are the 3 transmutation technologies. They correspond to spirit, union alchemy, mind, vector alchemy, and body, placement alchemy. Now here's the thing. These are all mental alchemies. This is all the art of mental alchemy. Because at the end of the day, the mind is the only place where perception can actually fragment. Because the mind is the only place that is compressed. The body already holds infinite intelligence. The body reflects spirit, but the body holds and is the effect, right? It's the affectal plane, right? That the mind, the causal plane, brings into reality. The mind can hold things that the body created. The mind reflects the body. Your exterior reflects your interior mind, right? Your body is a part of your exterior mind. And so there's union alchemy, vector alchemy, placement alchemy, spirit, mind, body. And they follow the geometry of transformation. Circle, line, triangle, square. They cannot be rearranged. If they are performed out of order, they do not work. You can't perform them out of order because there are steps. Not because the practitioner failed, but because reality does not negotiate with preferences. Reality doesn't care what you want. It only cares that you align with the law. That's it. If you want transformation to work, you got to align with how transformation already occurs. Here's how that's happening. In practice, union and vector alchemy dance together. It's not a binary 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. It's more of like a 1, 2, and then 3 is the dance. We'll get into that later. Union creates the space, vector uses it, and the back and forth between holding and cutting is a living rhythm. Hold wider, cut deeper. Hold wider still, cut more precisely, until the catalyst occurs. The triangle, metanoia, the rupture point, where perception shifts at a level so fundamental that the old frame cannot be reassembled. The point of no return, when the potential becomes actual. And then there's finally placement, the square, when that transformation lands in the body. It's a little amusing. Number 1 is union alchemy, the tension that generates, right? Holding both perspectives, holding both poles. Number 2 is vector alchemy, the shift in perception, going from one side of the continuum to the other. And then there's number 3, placement alchemy, nervous system orientation, right? Not being on either side of egoic distortion, but placing yourself properly in context of reality. Circle, line, triangle, square. This is not metaphor. This is the geometry of how transformation actually occurs, right? So the thing is, transformation can also occur line, circle, triangle, square. The thing is, circle and line are really 1A, 1B, and they can come either way. And then step 2 is their union. Step 3 is triangle, the rupture. Step 4 square, right? So you can kind of see here, when we have the ontological correction alchemy, got some musings here. Union alchemy, holding opposites, the circle. Vector alchemy, shift in perception. 3 is the dance. There are tons of other transformation vectors, other types of alchemy, the creative process, when you're interacting with people, that first starts with like the line and then the circle, and then it's the dance that creates the rupture. Basically see the line and the circle as the masculine feminine polarity prerequisites to transformation, right? The Hermetic principle, the 7th principle of gender, says that all things have masculine and feminine properties, properties, because it's the union of these two polarities that actually can create anything, right? Masculine and feminine, Shakti, Shiva, form, flow, consciousness, energy, whatever, however you want to look at it, logos, eros. These are two expressions of love that, when cohered, realize the oneness of love, right? And so when we bring logos and eros together, we realize the love underneath, in between, and over all of it. You feel what I'm saying? And that allows us to create, to transform. And so it's the bringing of these two poles, these two opposites. It's the dance of masculine and feminine that creates anything, that creates transformation, generation, right? When man and woman come together, they create a child. When proton and electrons come together, they create a new atom. When line and circle come together, they create the triangle. You feel what I'm saying? This is how it works. This is how reality works. This is the geometry. Reality is lawful, and its lawfulness is not that God made rules and imposed them, right? There's no character deity sitting up in the sky deciding who gets in and who's out. No. Its lawfulness is that God is infinite intelligence. And when infinite intelligence manifests in space-time, it is structured. It is beautiful. It is mechanical in its precision. and its mechanics can be learned. The space, union alchemy, the shift, vector alchemy, the dance between the two. This is the gestation. The gestation, this is like pregnancy, right? Catalyst is birth, rupture, metanoia, potential becomes actual, placement. This is reorientating to like parenthood. Placement, nervous system, stabilization. Right? If we want to go through like the whole sex thing, union and vector is like man and woman coming together at the same time, right? That's the dance. So it's like union is like attract, vector is pursue, entry. This is kind of like, hey, we're feeling kind of hot. This is the sex. This is the pregnancy. This is the birth. This is parenthood. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. If you're listening to this and you didn't see what I just said, rip. Should be watching on YouTube. Good fuck. All right. Step 1, union alchemy, the circle. Union alchemy operates at the level of spirit. It is feminine in nature. It is holding. It is all allowing. It is encompassing. It is reflective. These are the feminine's functions. Its shape is the circle, the container that holds without resolving. Its function is singular. Create space. The lever who is compressed has been collapsing nuance. They have been choosing one pole of a polarity when both poles need to be held simultaneously. They've been denying one half of their reality in order to manage the other half. And the denial is what produces the contraction. Union alchemy says, stop. Both things are true. Hold both. This is not about being open-minded. This is not about considering multiple perspectives in some bloodless analytical way. This is about allowing the opposite of what you have been holding to exist inside of you at the same time as what you have been holding. If you have been holding only strength, allow vulnerability. If you've been holding only duty, allow the grief. If you've been holding only performance, allow the rest. The opposite is not the enemy of what you are carrying. The opposite is what creates enough space inside the container for transformation to actually occur. Think about this. If there's no room in your cup, like let's say you have a fill cup, like you got a cup full of water, but you want to instead have like, let's say you're making like a cocktail. I feel like this is a good analogy. Now, let's say you have like a cup that's just like filled to the brim with like vodka, right? But you wanted to transform that cup that's full of the brim into a cocktail. Well, you can't do it inside that same cup. There's no fucking space. It's filled to the brim. So what do you got to do? You got to either pour some of the vodka out into a different container or just pour all of it into a different container and do the operation there. But you see how a different container is required? Because there's no space right now? That's what the circle is. It's creating the space. Here's some practical examples for the levers. For the statesman, hold that your people's suffering is real. It is. Do not gaslight yourself. And that you are not the sole generator of their outcomes. Because that's not true. Other forces act. Other agencies move. Other people have decisions in volition of their own relationship to the infinite. And beyond the relative, at the level of reality itself, who are any of us to claim sole agency over outcomes? There is one agent in reality. Love. And love does not need you to generate it. Love needs you to channel it. Jumper cables, remember? Hold both. The suffering is real, and you are not its sole cause or cure. For the religious leader, hold that your devotion to God is real. Of course it is. That is why you are here. And that your presence is already sufficient. Not your performance, not your output, not your congressional metrics. Your presence is already more than enough. The question that must be held without resolving is, why do you believe that if you are not always striving, always producing, always becoming more for God, that you are failing. Did God tell you that? In the direct experience of the divine, in prayer, in silence, in the moments where the veil thins, has God ever communicated insufficiency? Or has the insufficiency been supplied by a theology that placed God as external evaluator rather than as the love that already lives inside of you, the breath you are breathing right now? Contemplate that one. For the founder, hold that the vision matters. It does. It is in your mind's eye for a reason, and reality is intentional. That means the vision being in you is not an accident, and that it must be able to exist beyond you. Hold both. The vision was never yours. It was always God's. God placed it in you because you are the channel through which it routes into the world. But a channel is not an origin. Jumper cables are not the generator. The vision's survival is not contingent on your sufficiency. Its survival is contingent on its truth. And that truth doesn't come from you. It comes from that which all truth comes from. That which is truth itself. Love, the one infinite creator. If it's true, it will find other channels when it must. Hold both. You matter for the vision, and the vision is not yours. Not yours solely, at least. You are a co-creator, a participant with reality. You are not the sole agent. Do not resolve the tension. The tension is the energy. It's the capacity. It's the new container. The circle holds the tension alive. This is the prerequisite, the space that we need to perform vector alchemy. Vector alchemy, the line. Vector alchemy operates at the level of mind. It is masculine in nature. Its shape is the line, the continuum that cuts. Its function is singular. Discern. Where unit alchemy holds two things that are both true, vector alchemy stands on a continuum where one thing feels true and one thing actually is. This is not holding, this is cutting. This is the moment where the mind says, no. One of these is illusion, one of these is reality. And I'm going to move from the illusion toward the truth. This is requalification. The false belief does not need to be fought. In fact, it needs to be held and accepted. Because denial is still separation. Fighting an illusion is shadow boxing. That's like trying to pick up a fucking shadow. Can you pick up a shadow? Can you like measure a shadow like with like a can you like grasp a shadow and be like, okay, let me put this shadow into this new container? Like, what are we talking about right now, dog? The false belief doesn't need to be fought. It needs to be recognized, right? It's not like you need to say the shadow's not there. Haha. No, you see the shadow, right? Stop being an idiot. Also, don't try to fucking get at the shadow itself, because that's not the problem. It needs to be seen through. The positive use of denial. I deny all belief in this falsity. The affirmation of truth. I affirm what is real. The denial should feel expansive, not combative. But it'll only feel expansive if you first say, I see that this is not true. I'm seeing and I'm experiencing the shadow in my reality. However, it is not light. I don't have to accept it as absolute, because it's not. It is relative. The denial should feel expansive, not combative. If it feels like war, you're still inside the illusion. You're still in separation. It's okay. Just take some deep breaths. Keep walking. If it feels like exhaling, like setting down something heavy that was never yours to carry, the requalification is working. Here are the practical applications. For the statesman, the illusion is, I must perform to earn my seat. The truth is that service is your nature, not your proof. You didn't enter public life to audition for the right to serve. What are we talking about? You entered because service is what you are. You didn't be like, hey guys, I want to serve you guys and I'm going to prove that I want to serve you guys through this. No. You're only there because internally your essence is service. You see what I'm saying here? Your current reality, being here in that position, serving those people, is literally already the evidence. The proof is not downstream in some future outcome. The proof is right now in the fact of your presence. Move away from the illusion of performance toward the truth of nature. Deny the belief that your worth is conditional on outcomes. It is not. Affirm that your being in service is already sufficient evidence that you are called to serve. Now here's what I'll say, and this is really where placement alchemy comes in. But I'll just address this real quick. I'm not saying that the conditions of your outcomes aren't important. I'm not saying that the external world won't judge you for those things. No, they will. And they are important. What I'm saying is that your internal judgment, your internal worth should never be affected because the external outcomes. You should never think I am not enough for God, for my people, for myself, because externally I'm not performing. No. Your interiority is the proof you're already enough because your interiority is already infinite. That's it. The fact that you are of the one infinite creator, the fact that you are love itself, means you're already more than enough, period. No conditions required. Now, when it comes to showing the external, you have value, that you have capacities, that you have skills. Look, reality, this is you gotta play the game, bro. I know the game. I'm a fucking entrepreneur. I'm an artist. I'm a philosopher. What am I doing right now? I'm delivering you external value so that you can see my internal value. And if you see that and it changes you enough, you'll want to hire me for my polymath advisory. Link in description. No. You have to perform. Outcomes are important. Don't let them be the gauge for your interior truth, though. Your being in service is already sufficient evidence that you are called to serve. Your worth isn't conditional on outcomes. Period. End of fucking statement. For the religious leader, the illusion is, I must generate my people's relationships with God. That's just foolishness. The truth is that you are a channel, not a generator. We're going to keep coming back to the jumper cable analogies. You are the jumper cables, not the fucking engine. Your congregation does not need you to be the source of their connection to the divine. The divine is the source of their connection to the divine. They need you to be the bridge through which the connection flows. And the thing is, you're not the sole bridge, but you're a unique bridge that is important for them. The moment you believe you're the source, you have placed yourself in the position of the absolute, and no finite being can sustain the weight of the absolute without collapsing. This is not theology as abstraction. This is the mechanics. This is the direct mechanical reason your nervous system is giving out. You're trying to hold infinite weight in a finite nervous system. You're trying to do something you cannot do. Generate a power that is not yours to generate. You're trying to generate love. You're trying to generate transformation. You don't do that. Love is already here. It's already infinite. It's already abundant. You exist inside of love. Transformation is already moving and occurring. You only align with that transformation, or you're inert. You're resistant to it. There is no, I gotta make it happen. There is, am I with it or not? That's it. You don't generate. You route. You channel. You transmit. Your body has been telling you through exhaustion, through depression, through the 4 a.m. terror, that the placement is wrong. Your perception of yourself is wrong. Your perception of God is wrong. Deny the belief that you must generate. Deny that God is outside of you, that you need to generate relationship to other people. Deny the belief God is outside other people, and so you need to be the external generator of the internal relationship. God is internal. God is everywhere, inside and outside, and beyond, immanent and transcendent. God's presence is literally the only thing that exists. Deny the belief that you must generate, because it's not true. Affirm that your presence as a channel is already more than enough, because it is. For the founder, the illusion is that without me, the vision dies. Now this one's funny. Because the thing is, the vision existed before you and it'll exist after you. Right? The vision is eternal. It's beyond space-time. And God is the only sustainer of life. So like the belief that I could even sustain the vision is already a fallacy. God is sustaining the vision through me. That's proper placement. The truth is that the vision's survival is proof of its truth, not proof of your sufficiency. Who gave you the vision? The all. It certainly did not originate in your mind. The mind does not originate ideas, it receives them. Right? Like, actually, that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. No, the mind does generate. The mind does generate. The mind also mainly receives. And when we're talking about vision, spiritual sight, perception, all of that shit is given. All of it. All of that shit is received. All of it. All of it. The mind generates at the level of like the mental causal realm, at the level of like the spiritual plane. All of that shit is given from the absolute. All of it. All of that is received. That's why when you're open, you're in like the best like state of like reception. That's why that's why you get the best ideas in those times. That's why you get the best ideas when you're in the shower without listening to music, when you're out on a walk, when you're just like doing dishes, when you're just there being present. Presence is openness. Openness is receptivity. Openness and receptivity signal to God, oh, okay, I can give them more here. Say less. That's why those rupture moments, those moments of inspiration and insight happen when you're present, because you were open to actually receive it. What is that? The circle, container, union alchemy, holding. It's all the same shit, guys. I'm trying to teach you the mechanics here, all right? The vision did not originate in your finite mind. It was placed there by the same infinite intelligence that structured reality itself. The same intelligence that placed the laws of physics, the geometry of transformation, and the intent behind every living system. And the thing is, when we say placed, we don't mean God decided. It's not like God made up these laws. God made up the geometry of transformation. These things are permeations of the one's infinite intelligence. God is law. God is order. God is truth. God is beauty. It's not that God has order, or God has laws, or God has truth, or God has beauty, or God gives love. No, no, no. God is love. Love is truth. Love is beauty. These are all the same ontological reality. And transformation is when that ontological reality starts moving through space-time. It's when that eternal reality manifests and exists and evolves through the temporal reality. The infinite intelligence placed the vision inside of you with intention. Not because you're the only possible carrier, but because you are the unique carrier chosen for this moment. God chose you because you have a unique set of experiences, a unique set of capacities, a unique set of skills, a unique set of desires, a unique circle of influence, and a unique circle of impact you'll be able to attribute to the evolution of the collective consciousness from. That's why your vision exists, for unique self-catalyst, for unique self-symphony, for unique impact. And that unique impact is real. That weight is real. Hold it. Just stop thinking that you have to be the generator. Stop thinking you're the sole medium. That's egoic foolishness. If the vision is true, it will survive. Not because you are strong enough to hold it, but because truth does not die. Death is temporal. Truth is eternal. Deny the belief that you are the sole sustainer. Affirm that the vision was always greater than you and was designed to be. Three, the dance that leads to rupture. The triangle. The tension between the poles is the energy that transmutes. Union made the space. Vector uses the space to shift perception. And the two dance back and forth, out and in, holding opposites, cutting falsity, reintegrating truth. The circle and the line dance, until eventually, the requalification hits the threshold, when the denial of falsity and the affirmation of truth generate enough tension to rupture the old frame. Finally, the triangle appears. The threshold moment when potentiality becomes actuality. This is metanoia, the Greek root of repentance. Metanoia, meta, above, beyond. Noia, coming from the nous, the word for mind, consciousness, right? Metanoia is Greek. Metanoia is a shift in mindset or consciousness so radical, so meta, so beyond the self, that it changes you on a fundamental level. Metanoia, repentance, was always mental alchemy. Christian dogma bastardized it. We're here to bring it back to the mechanics. Repentance was never about shame. It was about orientating your perception on the infinite. This is not an outcome. It is not something you can schedule or force. It is something that arrives when union and vector have danced long enough and deeply enough that the catalyst becomes inevitable. You can't just force a baby to exist. You can't force birth to happen. I mean, you can, but you really shouldn't, right? Only until proper gestation, incubation in the dark has happened, can that potentiality be actualized into light, into actuality. Placement alchemy, the square. Placement alchemy operates at the level of body. Its shape is the square, the structure that stabilizes. Its function is singular, land. After the rupture, the nervous system must settle. The metanoia shifted perception, but the body has not yet caught up. The muscles still hold the old tension. The breath still carries the old rhythm. The posture still encodes the old placement. The square is where the body integrates what the spirit opened and what the mind reframed. Placement is not a technique, it is a consequence. It is what happens when union and vector have done their work and the system is ready to land. The body finds the position where reality actually is, not at either extreme of the continuum, because both extremes are distortions. The statesman is not I alone carry my people. This is grandiosity wearing the mask of service. Nor is it nothing I do matters. That is nihilism wearing the mask of humility. The placement is I am uniquely called to serve these people. My decisions matter. My presence matters. And I am not the sole agent. I am one participant in a system that is vastly larger than any single legislator. Both are true. Neither extreme is true. The body lands in the middle. And the middle is not a compromise. It is the only place where reality actually lives. The religious leader is not I am God's sole instrument. That is messianism wearing the mask of devotion. Nor is it I am irrelevant to God's work. That is despair wearing the mask of theological humility. The correct placement is God has infinite instruments, and this one is important. This one was placed here intentionally. Reality is lawful, reality is intentional. Infinite intelligence does not create instruments by accident. You are here for a reason, and the reason is not that you are the only one. The reason is that you are this one, and that this one matters for the people that this one was called to reach. You know, there's actually a beautiful story I heard a couple months ago when I was at church. And there was a pastor who kind of like broke down and kind of gave his story about this. There was like, I think it was like 20 years ago. He'd went on this like tour in Germany or in like in Eastern Europe, and he went like tons around the world. And there was this point where there's this like worship where like the people there, like I believe it was like a group of youth, they were singing. And there was like this massive like group of like 300 people that like gathered around the youth, and the pastor, I believe his name is Pastor Joe. Yeah, Pastor Joe Martin. He like prayed for them, and so many people converted, and it was such a beautiful moment of bringing people to God. And the trip was so successful. And he was kind of like traveling, and he got off this train at this like, you know, massive place, this massive train station. And he just saw thousands of people when he got off this train station, right? From all walks of life. And I hope you guys can't hear this fucking dog outside barking. Probably not. I think we're okay. That motherfucker is sticking at me, fucking barking. Because I'm fucking sitting here recording. All right. Let me lock in. Yeah, so Pastor Joe, he talked about how in the moment, as soon as he stepped off the train, he got hit by this like overwhelming sense of like lack. And it almost like broke him, because he felt like, wow, like there were so many people. He saw people, you know, from all walks of life. He saw black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, brown people, all kinds of people. And he thought to himself, I will never be able to reach all these people. I'll never be able to bring all these people, like, you know, my message, God's message. And it broke him. He started crying right there on the platform. And then God kind of like, I like to say, slapped the shit out of him, right? He started like talking to God. And God basically said, it was like he heard. It was basically like, did I tell you that you had to reach all these people? You know what I mean? And God was like, yo, I call you to reach to people that I call you to reach. And I'm going to send other people for the rest. And that story was very powerful for me, because it was like, man, if that's not unique self-placement, I don't know what is. Now, I didn't have this terminology articulated 2 months ago when I was hearing that sermon, but I felt these things internally. I have these things lived, right? I've been living these systems for the past year and a half. And so I was like, man, that's beautiful right there. That is the ego surrendering and the unique self realizing its true purpose. You are not here to impact every fucking soul, because you are not the infinite. Stop trying to be. Straight up. But what you are is an agent with impact and the ability to inflict power, and hopefully to inflict it beautifully and lawfully. And from that place, you can transform others. You can be a channel for love and for transformation. You already are. You just have to start believing that you're the generator and aligning with your actual function. The founder is not the vision is me. That is fusion wearing the mask of passion. Nor is it the vision does not need me at all. No, that is dissociation wearing the mask of detachment. The proper placement is this. The vision is God's, expressed through me, and the fact that it is in my mind, in my heart, is not an accident, but intent. I am the channel that was chosen for this expression. You are. You are the channel that was chosen for this expression. That matters. It matters immensely. And the vision is not dependent on your sufficiency, because it was never yours to sustain by force. It was always love's. It is yours, however, to serve by alignment. This is what coherence under pressure looks like. Weight is real. Placement is proper. Both at once. The weight does not decrease. The leader does not stop carrying. What changes is where the weight rests in the structure. Collapsing on top of a finite nervous system, or properly held by the infinite. An ontological placement is correct. The weight distributes across a system designed to hold it. The way a properly engineered bridge distributes load across its entire span, rather than concentrating all the force at a single point until the point fractures. The leader who is properly placed can carry extraordinary weight, civilizational weight, because the weight is not resting on their individual sense of self. It is resting on the correct relationship between the finite and the infinite, between the channel and the source, between the cables and the current. Section 6, Asymptotic Alchemy, the ongoing journey. There is no final destination in the external sense. There is no point at which the alchemy is complete and the leader is, quote, fixed. This is why I reject, final destination language, or like, I finally healed that thing fully language. It's like, not to say that that couldn't be true or that isn't the case. The problem is the ego's attachment to outcomes and destinations, or this thing is finally over, so now I can be happy, now I can rest. It's always a fallacy. It's always a fallacy. You know what? Where's the way to superior man at? I want to read this. Chapter 1. Stop hoping for a completion of anything in life. Most men make the error of thinking that one day it will be done. They think, if I can work hard enough, then one day I could rest. Or, one day my woman will understand something, and then she will stop complaining. Or, I'm only doing this now so that one day I can do what I really want with my life. The masculine error is to think that eventually things will be different in some fundamental way. They won't. It never ends. As long as life continues, the creative challenge is to tussle, play, and make love with the present moment while giving your unique gift. I love that book. I love that chapter. Just slaps the shit out of you, which is required. It never ends. You think that like fundamentally things are going to change. That's like asking the laws of reality to change. They can't, because God is unchanging. And so the laws that are a reflection of God's nature don't fucking change. Y'all see what I'm getting at? Our evolution, our understanding of the law evolves because the laws are infinite in depth. They are invariant but infinite in depth. And so we have, a finite capacity to understand their infinite depth. And so we keep exploring the principles. And so that's why we evolve our understanding of the first principles and of the mechanics, of the sciences, of the philosophies. At the same time, it's the same shit. This is why philosophers have been saying the same things for fucking millennia, because there aren't new things to figure out. It's just how the same thing looks a little different in this space-time kind of context. There is no final destination in the external sense. There is no point at which the alchemy is complete and the leader is fixed. That framing is itself a form of attachment. The belief that there is a future state in which the work is finished and peace can finally be experienced as a permanent possession. That's still egoic nonsense. There is no such state. Not in space-time. Not while you fucking breathe. Too bad. Get over it. Cry about it. It's cool. I get it. But what there is instead is the asymptote. Approaching infinity. Always becoming. The alchemical process never ends. The asymptote, a mathematical curve that approaches infinity without ever arriving. The asymptote does not lie about transformation. It says, you are always approaching. You are never arriving, and the approaching is the point. You are both the finite coming into the, You are both the infinite coming into the finite, spirit incarnating into form, consciousness descending into a body that has a nervous system, and a deadline, and a district of 700,000. And you are the finite reaching toward the infinite, the creature stretching toward the fullness of what its soul actually is. You are both of these asymptotes, the finite coming into finitude and the finite approaching infiniteness. The infinite coming into finitude, and the finite approaching infiniteness. You are both of those realities. The absolute perspective is you are the infinite in finitude. That's this asymptote on the left here. The relative perspective is you are the finite reaching towards the infinite. Both are the case. Both are true. Both need to be held. The distortions are two. The first is I am simply finite, the belief that there is no movement, no transformation, no becoming. This is the flat line. It feels like stagnation, and it is a lie, because transformation is always occurring. That's this one here. I am only ever finite. Finiteness is the only ever possibility, right? No infiniteness, no expansion, only finitude. There's another distortion. There's no such thing as stagnation, right? This is an extension. There's only growth or death, approach or collapse, expansion or contraction. Newton's first law in the metaphysical register: an object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest. Inertia in the mind is resistance. Resistance is compression. Compression is the contraction of perception. And contraction of perception is what this entire commentary has been diagnosing. There's no such thing as stagnation. There's only the experience or perception of it due to inertia. The second distortion is approach toward negative infinity. The downward spiral, the hell loop, the mind trapped in compression heading deeper into compression, the negative thought cycle. The 4 a.m. terror feeding itself, the belief that things can only get worse, reinforced by the felt experience of things getting worse. Cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. Which was itself produced by the belief that things can only get worse. This is the inertia loop at maximum velocity. It does not slow down on its own. Number 1 here, we have the infinite becoming finite. This is heaven to earth. Number 2, we have the finite approaching infinity, right? The finite approaching infinite, earth back up to heaven. These are both true of what you are. You need to hold both of these. These are the two egoic distortions. 3 is earth to hell. This is the downward spiral. So not earth to heaven, but earth to hell. So this is the distortion here. Like, these are the two distortions. So like the distortion of I am the finite reaching to the infinite, or of earth up to heaven, is earth to hell. So I'm the finite going into contraction and further into separation. So that's like life sucks, everything's just bad, everything's bad, negative thought cycle. Number 4 is the negative infinite stagnating at finitude. This is hell to earth. So this is, even though life sucks, there's limitation. Life fucking sucks and it's limited. There's no point of even trying, because what's the fucking point? That's hell to earth. And so the distortion here is that there's no heaven. Right? The distortion isn't finitude, it's that there's no heaven. The shift from approaching negative infinity to approaching positive infinity is the metanoia, right? So when you stop going from here, from this asymptote to this one, this happens as a radical shift. So like this shift happens because like the thought spiral happens One thing triggers this, and then it only happens like this. One thing triggers this, and then it only happens like this. You can only ever go from approaching hell to approaching infinity through the rupture, the metanoia. From a fundamental shift from negative infinity to infinity, from finiteness to infiniteness. That is the rupture. That is what union and vector produce when they have danced deeply enough. And once the shift occurs, the trajectory reverses. Not because the leader forced it, but because the placement corrected itself and the natural movement of consciousness is toward expansion, toward the infinite, toward love. I need you to stop trying to find stillness in outcomes. This is the trap. Outcomes are finite. They arrive, they pass, and the mind immediately generates the next one, the next goal, the next pole. The hamster wheel does not stop because you reach the destination. It stops because you stepped off. Find stillness in the movement. Find the stillness of your nature, which is infinite, which is love, which is eternal, that which is the ground of being itself, that which never changes. Find the stillness of that nature within the flow of becoming, within the movement of evolution. Becoming never ceases as long as you live in space-time. This is not a failure. That is the design. The asymptote does not arrive at infinity because it was never meant to. It was meant to approach, and the approaching, coherence under pressure over time, is the whole practice. Section 7, the law of love. God is love. God is one. God is law. Therefore, the law is one. Love. Reality's lawfulness is not that God made rules. It is that God is infinite intelligence itself. And when infinite intelligence manifests, it is structured, it is beautiful, it is ordered, it is intentional. You exist intentionally because reality is intentional. You are here because infinite intelligence placed you here. Not as a generator of outcomes, but as a channel through which love and transformation move into the world. As a channel through which love simply exists in the world. Love is always still and always moving, still at the ground of being, still at the ontological level of eternity, moving in the cosmos, moving in space-time, temporally. Transformation is how love moves and creates when love enters space-time. The only thing that blocks these natural occurrences of love and transformation is the mind. The mind that compresses, the mind that believes it's separate, the mind that mistakes lack for deficiency, instead of recognizing it is a signal of its infinite nature pressing against the walls of finitude. The mind's limited aperture is the constraint on your ability to receive love and transformation from reality, the receptive process. And your mind's limited aperture is the constraint on your ability to give love and transformation back to reality, the expressive process. These are one process, one movement. The receptive process is how transformation enters the individual. The expressive process is how transformation exits the individual back into reality. Receptive is reality inside individual. Expressive is inside individual, back outside to reality. One process, one alchemical sequence. There is one solution to the mind's problem. Constant expansion through asymptotic alchemy. Asymptotic alchemy is the continuous retraining of your perception on the infinite, on love, on beauty, on truth, on expansion. And the effort of willing and surrendering both at the same time into the love of the infinite. Willing and surrendering. Oscillating between the two, living in both. Never denying one or the other. Dedicate your self-mastery and your purpose to growth, to service, and to love above all. The mind will follow. Lack will return. It always does, because you are finite in experience, even as you are infinite in nature. When it returns, feel it. Do not deny it. Denial is still separation. But do not mistake it for proof that you are broken. It is proof for just the opposite. Proof that you are more than this. And it has always been proof that you were always more than this. You are not required to carry reality. You are required to be a channel through which reality carries itself. Place yourself properly. Everything else flows. Coherentia suppressura per tempus.